All right. Welcome, everyone. So excited for you guys to be with us today. I have an amazing sleep coach, Kathy Matthews. Welcome, Kathy.
Thank you, Ty. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, glad to be here with you. If you guys haven't met Kathy before or haven't heard of her, she is the owner of Shine Each Day, and she really loves helping families bring some peace into their home and create some peace at home. And we know that if your child isn't sleeping well, that can be a huge, huge challenge for the child and for you as the parent. So Kathy has a master's in education, and she loves to work with children, especially 0 to 5 or birth to 5, I guess instead of zero, we'd probably say it that
Right,
way.
right.
And works with parents either as groups or as individuals to help. And we're going to really focus today on the sleep routine because we know if the sleep goes well, then it's going to help the whole family shine. So
Absolutely. That's
thank you
so
so
true.
much for being here.
Thank you.
And can you tell us, Kathy, if you're especially in the sleep world, what are
hmm
some of the common things you see parents struggling with when it comes to sleep?
Yeah, I think one of the most common struggles that I see is parents getting into this cycle and very innocently about either rocking their kids to sleep, feeding them to sleep, whether it's bottle or nursing, patting them to sleep or rocking them to sleep. And because kids and newborns sleep so much and eat so much, it just kind of happens. And then all of a sudden they realize that at a certain point in time, they shouldn't need to be waking up anymore to eat. But yet, because they've created that routine or that habit, that they're now in that cycle, and something has to change in order to change the child's waking.
Got it.
Another common thing, yeah,
Yep,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Nope, go.
Oh,
Keep
another
continue on.
common thing is just parents missing the sleep cues for kids. So
Mm,
kids getting overtired. And when kids get overtired, whether it's for nap or bedtime, it takes a lot more effort from the parent in order to help the child settle and then fall asleep. So those are two of the most common things that I help parents with.
okay. Yeah, I could see that being huge challenges. We see so many families in our office where it's like, oh, he's overtired, and you can see the
Right.
moods just impact everyone.
Exactly.
Yeah. And and I imagine then the first one that you're describing is there's got to be some point in time where a child transitions away from relying on mom or dad to doing these
Right.
things on his or her own. And if it doesn't happen, mom or dad just feel so like tied up, I imagine, that they
Exactly.
want to finally get some free time to themselves, and it
Right.
becomes
And
reliant on them.
parents just start to dread or bedtime or nap time. I've talked to
Mm,
parents who never, every day is just exhausting because they
mm,
can't figure out when to put their child down for a nap because they don't have a routine or a schedule. And so they'll spend all day just trying to put their kids down for a nap, for them to sleep 20 minutes and then get up and then do it all over
oh,
again. And
yikes.
so even at bedtime, it becomes very frustrating, and
Hmm.
parents just start to dread bedtime. And that's
Absolutely.
not something we want. We want
No.
parents and children to enjoy that final snuggle time and relaxing time before they go to sleep. So
Definitely.
um,
Yeah, that'd be
that's
exhausting.
huge. Hmm
Yeah. What is an age? I'm curious then if, because obviously there's, when you have a newborn baby, you do want to be patting them and snuggling them, and helping them feel safe and secure. What is
Absolutely.
an age when you start working with people to start kind of saying, I think you want to start transitioning away from that?
Yeah, usually I don't see parents asking for help with their
Mm,
children until about 6 months old.
okay.
But I think around 4 months old, if parents
Mm,
get early support, then it can really just transition smoothly where their child does learn to sleep on their own and they don't have to go through that time of I've got to sleep train my child because
got it.
now because they just don't get up during the night all the time. So I oftentimes see parents when kids are between 6 months and 15 months,
Mm-hmm.
very frustrated usually at that point.
Okay.
I love to work with them earlier around
Mm-hmm.
that 4 month time. 4 to 5 months time, I think, is an ideal time to really start um, healthy habits that can make sleeping through the night more possible for everyone.
Got it. Okay.
Mhm.
And what are some of the benefits to starting those sleep habits early? I guess, obviously the better sleep is going to make everyone happier, but what are some of the other positive effects you see of learning a good sleep routine in those early months?
Absolutely. One that we don't often think about is the relationship between the parent and the child, and then the parents as well. When they're not getting sleep, there's much more stress and tension in the family. And so um, that healthy sleep is not just for the child who needs it for healthy brain development, healthy or large motor development, their cognitive development, and staying healthy. Kids who don't sleep tend to be catch more bugs and kind of get in this loop of constant ear infection or constant cold or constant runny nose. And if we can help everybody sleep right from the beginning, then you can get through that. Also, kids go through a lot of different milestones, especially in that first year of life, where they're learning to roll over, they're learning to crawl, they're learning to sit up. And sleep can get challenging during that time as kids like to practice in the
Mm-hmm.
middle of the night. And so, again, this is when a lot of times parents will fall into a kind of a bad pattern because the child wakes up just kind of wanting to practice their new skills, and parents automatically go, oh, they woke up, they're hungry, so I have to go in and feed them. And then they keep doing that, and then it becomes that's the new habit. The child wakes up and they want to eat in the middle of the night, when really that's not necessarily what they were needing. But that's usually parents' first go-to is that's the way I can settle them is feed them. So
Mm-hmm.
um, they tend to want to feed them at night,
Yeah,
long
okay.
long after the children really need it.
Mm-hmm. Got it. How
Yeah.
do you find then that, because I could see those milestones like you're saying being like, oh, he's just practicing his new move.
Right.
How can you, is it easy to differentiate then if the child's just practicing something and you can let them be versus like, no, I think they actually do need my attention or they do
Yeah,
need
and I
something
think
to eat.
every child is going to be different.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, again, it depends on the routines and the patterns that have been set previously before
Mm-hmm.
them. If, again, the child is just making noise, if the parent just realizes, oh, they're just, because they are so active in their cribs, to just realize, yeah, they're just settling themselves and that's okay. It's very surprising for parents after their children start sleeping through the night how active they are and how infrequently they really need to go in. So,
Mm-hmm.
giving the children a little bit of time to settle themselves is really important. I actually encourage parents to turn off the monitor, especially when the child's room is, just down the hall.
Mm-hmm.
Parents will hear them if they need them, but if they've got the monitor right by their bed, every time their child moves, they tend to get stirred and on alert.
Mm-hmm.
And so then they want to go in and help. But really, the
Right.
child can do it on their own if we allow them to.
Cool. I think that's a great tip because, especially with like a first time parent, it's just
Mhm.
so, you're watching every little thing about your child and you want to be right
Absolutely.
there for them and right there for them and right there for them. And giving them some space is going to give you some space as a parent as well.
Right. And that's one thing I talk to parents too about is them believing that it's reasonable for their child to sleep 10, 11, sometimes 12 hours
Mm-hmm.
straight. But a lot of parents think they can't do that. And
Mm-hmm.
it's possible. It's very
Yeah.
possible. Many kids do it.
Hmm. We'll see
Yeah.
that once in a while after a family comes in and their kid hasn't been sleeping well and they get their first adjustment. And
Oh, yeah.
especially those first few adjustments, moms will sometimes come back and be like, I had to check on my kid like 6 times last night because he was just zonked out sleeping. And
Right.
I didn't, like, I had to, like, is he okay? Is he okay?
Yeah, because
And
they're not used to it. But
exactly.
your adjustment is helping them calm their whole nervous system so
Mm-hmm.
that they can sleep. And yeah, now the parents need
Absolutely.
the adjustment so their alert system
Mm-hmm.
goes down, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and that's why I think it's such a good teamwork of when we're adjusting, we're helping calm the nervous system.
Absolutely.
But what you're doing is actually giving the parents the tools and the habits because those two things need to be done, right? The child needs some calm from the inside, but they learn from habits and patterns, and if
Exactly.
that habit is off, it's going to be a tough hill because they're just going to keep responding.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's helping parents learn a new way.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I guess I'm curious if a child is there an age then if they've had a off sleep pattern for a while, are you working with them all the way through 5 years old or so, or is there a time where it's it becomes too tough to change that routine?
Oh, I think good sleep patterns can always be put into place, even for us
Mm-hmm.
adults. I
Mm-hmm.
think we all fall into bad habits, and so I think positive sleep routines can be put into place at any point in time. And
Okay.
we talk a lot about routines, and when we've started a routine, if we've been doing that same thing of feeding our child to sleep for 15 months,
Mm-hmm.
well, it's that's a routine. That's what the child
Mm-hmm.
expects, and so the child, if we're going to change things, the child's got to catch up. Like,
Mm-hmm.
something is different here. This isn't what we used to do, and
Mm-hmm.
so I think anyone that isn't getting good sleep could use help, and it's
Got
all
it.
about routines.
Yeah. Okay. And
Yeah.
are there common? I know you mentioned not going in to the room as soon as a child starts to roll around. Are
Hmm.
there other common patterns that you see of parents being super well intended to take care of their kid, but something that could be interfering with those common routines?
Yeah. The nursing, for sure. I
Okay.
hear that a lot from nursing parents or nursing
Mm-hmm.
moms, is that my baby's hungry, I need to go in and feed him. And so
Mm-hmm.
that becomes the hardest part for moms, because they've been used to getting up and going in the middle of the night. So sometimes I will suggest if dad can go in the middle of the
Mm-hmm.
night, or even have dad start doing the initial bedtime routine, so
Mm-hmm.
the child isn't expecting to be nursed to sleep every night. And it just kind of, it takes the stress off of mom,
Mm-hmm.
because as a nursing mom, it's really hard to not nurse your child when they're crying, and you can make it stop. And
Absolutely.
so simple things of just having dad be on board, or even grandma or grandpa, or someone else to do the bedtime routine at the
Mm-hmm.
beginning, and then also to go in if the child is sad at night, can make a huge difference.
I love that. Yeah, because I
Yeah,
can see
I've had
there's.
moms that have either taken a weekend at the hotel or
Mm-hmm.
slept in the basement for a couple of nights,
Ah,
just
it's.
to, because it's just, there's this tug as a mom.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard to not go in and
Mm-hmm.
nurse your child. And again, what most, I'm not talking about in the first few months. We're talking well after that, they don't need to be nursed
Right.
at night anymore.
Right.
Yeah,
Perfect. Yeah, that's that emotional piece is tricky. That
it's
bond
very
is
hard.
deep. Yeah. Wonderful. Great tip.
Yeah.
Any other recommendations or things that you see that could be tripping moms up commonly?
Um, the keeping kids up too late is another
Mm-hmm.
big one. Because when kids are little, again, a lot of times you get parents get in the habit of not putting them into bed until 10, 9, 10, sometimes even later at night. And then there comes this point again, as in the child's development, where they need to start to go to bed earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's a really kind of a hard transition for parents to know, when do we start putting them down at 7, when we've been putting them down at 9 o'clock at night. So one of the things I always say is sleep begets sleep. And parents will say, well, if I put them to bed at 9, and they're already getting up at 6, that means if I put them to bed at 7, they're going to get up at 4. And it's like, no, actually, a lot of times you put them to bed at 7 and they sleep until 6 or 7 in the morning. And that concept is really hard for parents to
Mm-hmm.
understand, that if we put them down, even for nap times, 15 minutes earlier, makes a huge difference. And the kids then settle in their sleep space, um, and then fall asleep and sleep much longer and better.
Wonderful. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's really interesting because I know some of the studies that we've done that we share with practice members is that about 6 p.m. we have a natural cycle in our body that starts to wind us down for the end of the day. And
right.
especially if we can get to bed before 10, it keeps that momentum going instead of
Exactly.
getting like a second wind. and
Right.
that when you get to bed early, it doesn't. Just the quality of the sleep is so much better, and doesn't mean
Exactly.
they'll
And
wake
if
you up at
kids,
4.
right. And if kids get overtired, it takes
Mm-hmm.
about a good 45 to 60 minutes for
Mm.
them to come back down. And so as I talk with parents, when I hear that, they're like, oh, they get so ramped up and it takes them like, 45 minutes to an hour to settle down. I'm like, that's a sure sign to me that
It
they're
came back
overtired
up.
and we need to go to bed earlier.
Got it. Okay.
Um, and that's the one that always surprises parents, but
Mm-hmm.
it's amazing the difference that it makes.
Cool. Are there any cues you see parents often overlooking that might signal their child's tired?
Yeah, a lot of parents wait until kids yawn or rub their eyes or start to get really cranky. And that's about when they're overtired. When they're getting really cranky and they're having tantrums on the floor, they're way overtired. And the first sleep cue I suggest parents looking for is really when they're engaged with their child and their child just gazes away and they
Hmm.
just start to disengage. And that's their cue that, okay, they're ready for bed and we need to get things moving, not give them a bath, not, take another 45 minutes
Mm-hmm.
to get them ready for bed. We need to, give them the bottle or whatever and then get them right into their sleep space. So,
Okay.
um, that is something that I talk a lot about is catching the sleep cue much earlier and it's much more subtle than
Mm-hmm.
parents anticipate.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's a beautiful tip because
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be obvious because I love that you wait for the obvious yawn and by then they're probably going
right.
to be catching that second wind pretty quick and now you got your
Exactly.
workout
E-
cut out for you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. What would you say then? I'm curious, as a sleep coach, you have kind of your baseline tips, but then I imagine a lot of parents come to you and maybe they've read some books or they've been through programs or they've covered their bases.
Right.
What do you then do as a sleep coach? What does that look like in getting to be able to help a parent?
Yeah. There are so many wonderful books out
Mm-hmm.
there that help with sleep. But just as we're talking on this video, parents might see here sleep cues or get to bed earlier or, try one thing and then it doesn't work. And so then
Mm-hmm.
they get frustrated. They say, well, that didn't work. I'm not going to do that anymore. When I work with families, we have about a good hour conversation that looks at um, their birth, if they were preterm, if they were full term, any medical concerns that they have going on, if the child's been sick
Mm-hmm.
frequently. I look at the parent's temperament, I look at the child's temperament, and I look at all the things that are tied with that. So, what's their family routine like? Are there two parents working outside the home? Are there siblings? That's another one I hear frequently is, oh, I don't want to let my baby cry because they'll wake up their older brother.
Mm-hmm.
And so, again, they just fall into this habit with the second and third child, putting them to sleep rather than allowing them to learn how to put themselves to sleep because they don't want to wake the other child. Um, and so I look at all those pieces with each individual family and basically make a schedule from morning until night, a whole day routine, because the good sleep doesn't start at bedtime, it starts in the morning. And so
Mm-hmm.
that good routine from the get go in the morning is critical. And so that routine, when parents have followed it, it's been amazing that how easy their children go down. And really within 2, 3 nights, and I've even had one night where the children are sleeping all through the night and parents are completely amazed. So
Mm-hmm.
um, it's not just one little thing. That's, I think, the benefit of working with a sleep coach and working with myself is that I look at all the elements of the family, of the child, and what parents want to have happen. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. I think with so many things, there's, like you're saying, as an expert, you have all these check boxes you're looking at, versus if I'm a
right,
parent and I'm reading a book, I get the overview, but I can't necessarily customize it to everything in my situation in my family.
Right.
Yeah.
It's more complex than just
Mm-hmm.
picking one sleep method and say I'm going to do that.
Got
Because
it.
that's when parents sometimes get really frustrated and say, I tried that,
Mm-hmm.
it won't work, and I've tried everything because they aren't looking at the whole picture, the whole day and the whole family and
Right.
everything.
Yeah, it sounds very holistic that way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, lovely. And I think the peace of mind too of if you try it a night or two and it doesn't work, if you're being coached, you're going to have the certainty that you're still on the right track and little
Right.
modifications you can make to actually let it sink in.
Right. And that is part of my sleep coaching is that
Mm-hmm.
when parents, we have the initial conversation, I do the whole schedule and the plan. We talk about what they're going to do. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes parents will say, okay, I'm not ready to start for a couple of weeks because we've got a big event coming up or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And so when they're ready, then I say, okay, they tell me when they're ready to start, and then I'm available via text. Usually it's text,
Mm-hmm.
so that they can text me during it and going, okay, now they're doing this, or they're throwing their nook out at me, or they're really mad, and
Right.
how should I respond? And because we can put the best laid plan on paper,
Mm-hmm.
but we've got children, and
Right.
children have their own agendas, and
Mm-hmm.
so having that immediate support. I think is really reassuring for parents to make the necessary changes, or and
Mm-hmm.
just to say, okay, we've made good improvements. Now we're gonna, focus on this. And
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
yeah,
those in the moment
so it's really helpful.
modifications to adapt to
Yeah,
real life situations. I love
exactly.
it. Cool.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up here, I'll put any contact info you'd like to share in the
Sure.
comments below. What are the
Okay.
best ways people can get a hold of you if they do want to look into sleep coaching?
Sure. They can email me at
Mm-hmm.
Kathy@shineeachday.com,
Okay.
or visit my website, same thing, shineeachday.com, or call or text at 952-270-2768.
Perfect. We will share
Yeah.
all those in the comments. So
Okay.
I appreciate your time today, Kathy, and
Thank you,
amazing
Ty.
tips. You're very welcome. I think it's just nice to have that overview for parents and know there's people out there to support you. So if you're a parent looking at this and wondering, hey, if I could get my infant off to a good start, definitely reach out to Kathy. She is a great resource and she'll be able to help you out. So
Wonderful. Thanks, Ty. Have a
you're
great day.
welcome. You too. Thanks, everyone.